The late afternoon sun poured golden light into Claire's small apartment, casting long shadows across the worn wooden floor. She leaned against the counter, idly stirring a mug of tea, trying to calm the restless flutter in her chest. Moving to a new city had promised freedom, a fresh start. But after 2 months of lonely evenings and endless work hours at the small marketing firm, Claire felt anything but free. The walls around her seemed smaller with each passing day. The silence heavier. Her thoughts were interrupted by the faint knock at the door. Frowning, she set the mug down and crossed the room. Who could that be? She murmured to herself. When she opened the door, she was met by Jason, her landlord. He had a calm, confident presence, one that always seemed to fill a room without effort. Jason had been kind from the start, always quick with a smile or helpful suggestion, and, admittedly, Claire found herself looking forward to these brief encounters more than she wanted to admit. "Hey, Claire," Jason said, his voice casual, but there was a weight in his tone that made her heart skip. "Do you have a minute?" "Sure," she said, stepping aside. He entered, brushing past with a familiarity that felt oddly comforting yet slightly alarming. He paused near the window, looking out at the city skyline as if gathering his thoughts. "I've been thinking," he said, finally, turning to face her, "about the apartment." "About you? Really?" Claire felt her pulse quicken. She tried to keep her expression neutral, but she knew curiosity and something else, something warmer, was leaking through. "Okay," she said slowly. "I'm listening." Jason hesitated, and for a moment the silence stretched between them. It wasn't awkward. Not exactly. It was charged, as if the air itself was aware of something unspoken. "I know you've been feeling a little isolated here," he said, choosing his words carefully. "And I have an idea. Think it could help, but it's a bit unconventional." Claire tilted her head, trying to guess what he meant. "Unconventional how?" she asked, though a nervous excitement tickled the edges of her chest. He met her gaze, eyes steady and serious. "Well, I was thinking about the guest room in my apartment building. It's rarely used. I thought maybe if you wanted some company, someone to talk to at least a few evenings a week, you could use it. It's for yourself." Claire blinked. The suggestion hit her like a sudden gust of wind. A guest room. In her mind, she had imagined many things moving again. Making new friends, trying out city life, but never something like this. Part of her felt relief at the thought of not being so alone. Another part, though, was confused, hesitant. She didn't know how to respond. "It's thoughtful of you," she said finally, trying to keep her voice steady. "But I don't want to intrude. I mean, it's your space, and She trailed off, uncertain how to finish. Jason's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "It wouldn't be intrusion," he said gently. "I promise. You're not obligated in any way. I just thought maybe it could be a comfort, a way to make this place feel more like home for you." Claire felt a strange warmth creep into her chest. It's a mixture of gratitude, curiosity, and something deeper she couldn't quite name. She wanted to say yes, to embrace the idea and let it soften the quiet weight she'd been carrying. But something about the way Jason looked at her, come earnest, a little vulnerable, made her hesitate. There was history in his gaze, even if it was unspoken. A hint that he, too, thought the isolation of life in a city where connection was fleeting. "Let me think about it," she said at last, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't want to rush anything." Jason nodded, stepping back toward the door. "Of course," he said. "Take all the time you need. Just know that it's there if you want it." After he left, Claire closed the door and leaned against it, her mind spinning. She had always been practical. Cautious, never someone to jump into situations without clear boundaries. But this suggestion stirred something inside her. Part of her wanted companionship, wanted to feel seen, to feel warmth in a way she hadn't in months. Yet another part feared crossing a line. Feared complicating her simple life with emotions she wasn't ready to name. She wandered to the window, gazing at the streets below, alive with people hurrying home from work, laughing, talking, living lives that seemed far more connected than hers. She thought about Jason's offer, the way his presence lingered in the room, the quiet gentleness in his eyes. There was something about him, something that made her heart ache a little. Something that made the walls of her apartment seem even smaller when he wasn't there. The next few days were a whirlwind of inner debate. Claire found herself replaying their conversation again and again, imagining herself in that guest room, imagining what it would feel like to have someone nearby who cared, someone who noticed her. She tried to push the thoughts away, telling herself it was impractical, unnecessary, even unwise. But every evening when she returned to her quiet apartment, she felt the absence of that suggestion like a weight pressing against her chest. Then, one evening, as she carried a stack of papers back to her apartment, her phone buzzed. A message from Jason. "If you want, I can show you the guest room tomorrow evening. No pressure, just a tour. You might like it." Her stomach fluttered. She stared at the screen for a long moment, heart pounding. Part of her wanted to run to him immediately, to say yes without hesitation. Another part hesitated, wary of the emotional storm she felt rising within her. She knew that saying yes could change something between them, something subtle but undeniable. And yet, the idea of having that small companionship, a safe space where she could breathe and not feel entirely alone. It was tempting beyond words. Claire typed a quick reply. "Okay, I'll see you tomorrow." Immediately after sending the message, a wave of uncertainty hit her. She wondered if she had made a mistake, if she had misread Jason's intentions, if she was stepping into a situation that could leave her feeling more exposed than she was ready for. And yet, despite the nerves, despite the questions and the doubts, she felt a spark of anticipation, a flicker of something she hadn't felt in a long time possibility. That night, as she lay in bed, Claire couldn't stop thinking about Jason's suggestion. Her thoughts shifted between hope and fear, curiosity and caution, and then, unexpectedly, a small, tender warmth spread through her chest whenever she pictured him smiling at her, showing her the guest room, talking quietly about nothing and everything. It was thrilling and terrifying all at once, and Claire realized she was standing on the edge of a choice that might change the rhythm of her life in ways she couldn't yet predict. As sleep claimed her, her last thought was a whisper in her mind. Tomorrow, everything might be different. The next evening, Claire found herself standing in front of Jason's apartment door, her hand hovering over the bell. She had gone back and forth in her mind all day, imagining what the guest room would look like, imagining what it might feel like to be there with him nearby. Her heart raced, her palms were slightly sweaty, and a nervous energy buzzed through her chest. Jason opened the door before she could knock. "Hey," he said with that calm, reassuring smile that always seemed to make her feel both safe and restless at the same time. He stepped aside. "Come on in." The apartment was warm, tidy, filled with sunlight streaming through large windows. Claire had visited his apartment once before, but seeing it again now felt different. She was aware of every detail, the way the light hit the hardwood floors. The subtle scent of his cologne mingled with the faint aroma of coffee. There was an intimacy to the space that made her pulse quicken. Jason led her down the short hallway, talking casually about small things, the weather, a new coffee shop he'd discovered, but Claire barely heard him. Her attention was drawn to the guest room door, half expecting it to be ordinary, sterile, unremarkable. Instead, it was cozy. Warm tones, soft lighting, and a small desk by the window that looked out onto the city. A plush armchair sat in one corner, and a neatly made bed suggested comfort and thoughtfulness. It wasn't grand or extravagant, but it was inviting in a way that made Claire feel, immediately, like she could breathe. "I thought, if you wanted, you could use this sometimes," Jason said, standing slightly behind her. "It's yours whenever you need a change of scenery or just a quiet place." Claire turned slowly to face him. "It's perfect," she said softly, her voice tinged with emotion. She wasn't sure if she meant the room or the thought behind it. The idea that someone cared enough to create a space just for her felt surprisingly overwhelming. Jason smiled gently, watching her reaction. There was a quiet intensity in his gaze, one that made her stomach flutter. He shifted slightly, almost as if choosing his next words carefully. I just want you to feel at home, not alone. The simplicity of it, the sincerity in his tone, made her heart ache in a way she couldn't ignore. She wanted to speak, to tell him how much it meant, but words felt inadequate. Instead, she nodded, a small smile brushing her lips. For a while, they walked around the apartment, talking lightly, their conversation flowing easily despite the underlying tension neither fully acknowledged. Claire noticed herself stealing glances at him, noticing the way his hand brushed against a surface, the small crease in his forehead when he concentrated on something, the warmth in his smile when he caught her looking. She felt drawn to him in a way that surprised her, and she wasn't sure if it was just gratitude for his thoughtfulness or something deeper, more complicated. After a few minutes, Jason cleared his throat. I should let you settle in. I'll be downstairs if you need anything. Claire looked at him, a little startled by how much she wanted him to stay. She realized the guest room wasn't just a roomette, was a threshold, a space that symbolized a choice to open up, to let someone in, to allow herself to feel something she had been pushing away for months. Thanks, she said, her voice quiet but filled with emotion. For this. For everything. Jason gave her a small nod, his expression unreadable for a moment before he left. Claire closed the door behind him and walked around the room slowly, touching the desk, sitting in the armchair, imagining the possibilities. The room felt like a secret she could share with herself, a place where the quiet ache of loneliness could be softened, if only for a few hours at a time. She unpacked a small bag she had brought, placing a few personal items on the desk and nightstand. As she did, she felt an unexpected surge of warmth, not just for the room, but for Jason, for his thoughtfulness, for the subtle way he had cared enough to make this gesture. Her chest felt full, and at the same time she felt nervous, unsure where this new dynamic would lead. Later, sitting by the window and looking out at the city lights, Claire found herself thinking about Jason in ways she hadn't before. She remembered the kindness in his eyes, the patience in his voice, and a sudden clarity hit her. She was drawn to him, not just as her landlord or a helpful friend, but in a way that felt tender, uncertain, and deeply compelling. But alongside the warmth was confusion. Was it appropriate to feel this way? Could she allow herself to be vulnerable, to entertain feelings she hadn't fully acknowledged? And most importantly, what did Jason feel? He had been gentle, considerate, but there had been hints, small, fleeting gestures, subtle glances that made her wonder if there was more behind his actions than simple kindness. As she sat in the quiet of the guest room, a soft knock at the door startled her. Her heart leaped. Come in, she called, trying to steady her voice. Jason stepped inside, holding a small tray with tea and cookies. I thought you might like a little company, he said, his eyes meeting hers in a way that made the air between them shimmer. Claire's throat tightened. She wanted to refuse to assert her independence, but the honesty in his gesture, the genuine care, made her pause. She nodded, a small smile forming. I'd like that, she said softly. They sat together, sharing tea in companionable silence at first. Then, slowly, their conversation drifted into personal territory, stories of childhood, of dreams, of the quiet fears and longings they had rarely shared with anyone. Each word, each confession seemed to draw them closer, weaving a delicate thread of connection that neither had expected but both welcomed. As the evening wore on, Claire became acutely aware of the intimacy of the moment. There was no pressure, no expectation, just the gentle closeness of two people exploring the fragile, tender edges of trust and attraction. Her chest fluttered with a mix of nervousness and excitement, the kind that comes from realizing someone sees you not just the surface, but the quiet, hidden parts of yourself and values them. Eventually, Jason stood, stretching slightly. I should let you get settled for the night, he said, his tone soft, almost hesitant. Claire nodded, trying to mask the longing in her eyes. Thanks for everything, she said again, though this time the words carried more weight. more unspoken emotion than she could put into sentences. He lingered for a moment, just at the doorway, as if considering something unspoken. Then, with a small, almost imperceptible smile, he left. The door clicked softly behind him, and Claire was left alone in the warm glow of the guest room, her mind swirling with thoughts, questions, and feelings she hadn't anticipated. She sank onto the bed, her hand resting over her heart, trying to calm the rapid beat. She realized with both excitement and apprehension that her life was subtly shifting. The simple act of a guest room, a thoughtful gesture, had opened a door she wasn't sure she was ready to walk through, but she felt a pull, irresistible and magnetic, toward the possibility of something more with Jason. Claire didn't know what the next days would bring, only that the quiet tension, the unspoken attraction, and the warmth she felt in his presence were impossible to ignore. And as she drifted off to sleep, a single thought lingered in her mind. Delicate and persistent, maybe this could be the beginning of something real. The morning light filtered softly through the curtains, painting the guest room in shades of gold. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, her thoughts tangled with memories of the previous night. The tea, the conversation, the quiet comfort of Jason's presence, it all lingered in her mind, leaving a warmth that made her chest flutter. She wasn't naive. She knew there was a line to be careful of, boundaries that needed respect. Yet, something about Jason's calm confidence and gentle sincerity made her want to step closer to that line, to see how far trust and attraction could quietly grow. She dressed quickly, but her mind kept drifting back to him. Even small details seemed etched into her memory, the way his eyes held hers when he spoke, the faint curl of his smile, the easy rhythm of his gestures. It was more than a passing thought. It was a quiet ache, a sense of longing that made her pulse quicken. Later that day, Claire returned to her own apartment, carrying a stack of work files and a lingering awareness of Jason. Each step through the hallway felt heavier with anticipation. She tried to focus on emails, spreadsheets, client calls, anything to distract herself, but her thoughts kept returning to him. The way he had made her feel seen, appreciated, even safe, was addictive in a subtle, almost dizzying way. Her phone buzzed unexpectedly. A message from Jason. "I was thinking maybe we could have dinner in the lounge tonight. Just something simple. No pressure." Claire stared at the screen, a rush of warmth spreading through her. She hesitated for only a moment before replying. "I'd like that." Evening came faster than expected. Claire dressed in a soft, casual outfit, her nerves and excitement mingling. The building's lounge was quiet, filled with soft lighting and a few potted plants, creating an intimate, almost private space despite its public setting. Jason was already there, casually leaning against a counter, his eyes lighting up as soon as he saw her. "Hey," he said, his voice low and calm, making her heart skip. "You look nice." Claire felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Thanks," she murmured, unsure how to respond without sounding flustered. She noticed how he had changed subtly from the previous evening, more relaxed but still attentive. Aware of her presence in ways that felt comforting and stirring all at once, they settled at a small table. Simple plates of food in front of them, but the conversation flowed effortlessly. It wasn't just polite chatter. They spoke of memories, small regrets, dreams for the future. Each story Jason shared revealed layers of thoughtfulness, humor, and quiet vulnerability. Claire found herself laughing at moments she hadn't laughed in weeks, her shoulders relaxing as if the tension she had carried for months was melting away in his presence. There were pauses, 2 long, quiet silences that weren't awkward but charged. They held each other's gaze without needing words, each realizing, perhaps subconsciously, how much the other mattered. Claire's fingers brushed the edge of the table, close to his, and she felt a subtle jolt of connection that was more emotional than physical, yet no less powerful. Jason leaned back slightly, studying her with that careful, patient attention. "You know," he said quietly, "I'm glad you agreed to see the guest room the other night. I think it was good for both of us." Claire tilted her head, curiosity and emotion mingling. "Good for both of us." He nodded, a soft smile tugging at his lips. Yes. I don't just mean having someone around. I mean, I've realized how much I enjoy your company, how much I've missed this kind of connection. Her heart thumped loudly in her chest. She had expected kindness, perhaps thoughtfulness, but not this honest, quiet admission that he valued her beyond the superficial roles of tenant and landlord. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her emotions, yet feeling an undeniable pull toward him. I I feel the same, she admitted softly, almost a whisper. I didn't expect it, but I enjoy your company too. His eyes softened, a subtle relief and happiness shining through. Good, he said simply, and it was enough. No grand gestures, no dramatic declarations, just the simple, profound acknowledgement of a shared feeling. After dinner, they lingered in the lounge, sipping coffee and letting the quiet stretch comfortably between them. Jason shared small stories about his childhood. Claire talked about her ambitions and fears, and in every word, every glance, they built a fragile but undeniable bridge of intimacy at one point. Jason leaned forward slightly, resting his forearms on the table. Claire, he said gently, I don't want to rush anything, but I also don't want to pretend I don't feel this connection. She met his gaze, her pulse quickening. I don't want you to rush anything either, she whispered, but I can't pretend I don't feel it either. A quiet smile passed between them, an understanding that words didn't fully capture. It was the kind of acknowledgement that left the air between them tingling, yet safe. Neither was forcing the other, yet both were aware of the subtle pull drawing them closer. Eventually, they left the lounge together, walking slowly through the building. The city lights outside glimmered like distant stars, and the night air was cool against their skin. Claire noticed small details, how his hand brushed briefly against hers, how his presence seemed to fill the space, how even silence felt intimate. She realized she was no longer thinking about boundaries or rules. Her focus was entirely on the quiet, growing closeness between them. When they reached the guest room, Jason paused. Do you want to come in for a bit? Just to relax, he asked, his voice low and careful. Claire hesitated, aware of the subtle risk of intimacy, yet feeling an irresistible trust. Okay, she said softly. I'm inside. The room felt warmer than ever, filled with a sense of privacy and quiet possibility. They sat together on the armchair, close but not pressing, sharing stories, laughter, and thoughtful glances. There was a tension in the air, delicate and thrilling, a mixture of hope, attraction, and longing neither could fully name. Claire realized something profound. It wasn't just the room or the moments they shared, it was Jason himself. His presence made her heart ache and soar at the same time, creating a blend of emotions she hadn't expected to feel with someone she barely knew a month ago. As the night deepened, Claire noticed Jason's gaze lingering a moment longer than before, a silent question in his eyes. She felt a flutter in her chest, unsure what would happen next, yet unwilling to step back. She understood that they were standing on the edge of something new, something fragile and tender, where connection and desire mingled in unspoken ways. Finally, Jason stood, stretching slightly. I should let you rest, he said softly, though his eyes betrayed a reluctance to leave. Claire nodded, a small smile on her lips, her heart still racing. Thank you. For tonight, she whispered. He paused in the doorway, giving her a quiet, meaningful look, then left, leaving the room and her filled with the lingering warmth of shared moments, unspoken words, and the thrill of possibilities yet to unfold. As Claire lay in the armchair, she replayed the evening in her mind. Every glance, every touch, every laugh. She realized she was on the verge of something delicate but profound. It's a connection that could change her life in ways she hadn't anticipated. The line between friendship and something more blurred, leaving her with a thrilling uncertainty. Her last thought before sleep claimed her was simple, yet electrifying. I can't predict what will happen, but I want to find out. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, casting soft stripes across the guest room. Claire woke slowly, her mind still lingering on the previous night. The way Jason had looked at her, the warmth of their conversation. The quiet comfort of sitting near him left a soft ache in her chest, a mixture of longing and hope. She felt a nervous excitement for the day ahead, unsure what it might bring, but eager nonetheless. By mid-morning, Claire found herself wandering through the building's small courtyard, hoping for a moment of clarity. The city outside hummed with life, but inside, the quiet of the courtyard offered a brief reprieve from her racing thoughts. She reflected on how much had changed in a short time, how a simple suggestion from Jason had opened the door to something she hadn't realized she needed. Her phone buzzed unexpectedly. A message from Jason. Lunch. I thought we could grab something nearby and walk around a bit. Just us. Claire's chest fluttered. She typed back quickly. I'd like that. Later, they met at a small cafe a few blocks away. Jason greeted her with that familiar, calm smile that always seemed to make her heart beat faster. They ordered sandwiches and coffee, then walked slowly down the sunlit streets, talking about everything and nothing. Their conversation flowed easily, filled with laughter and small moments of shared vulnerability. At one point, Jason stopped near a quiet park, gesturing toward a bench under a large tree. Shall we sit? He asked. Claire nodded, feeling a strange mix of comfort and nervous anticipation as they settled side by side. They talked about their families, our childhood memories, and the little regrets that shaped them. Each word, each shared story seemed to draw them closer, creating a delicate intimacy that neither rushed nor forced. Claire noticed how effortlessly he listened, how deeply he seemed to care. And she felt a connection growing stronger with each passing moment. The afternoon sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow over the park. Claire felt a sudden awareness of Jason's presence beside her, a subtle shift in energy that made her pulse quicken. She glanced at him, and their eyes met. For a brief moment, neither spoke, but the silence was electric, filled with unspoken emotion and tender anticipation. Jason finally broke the silence, his voice soft but steady. Claire, I need to tell you something. I don't want to rush you or make you uncomfortable, but I feel something for you. Something real, and I can't ignore it anymore. Claire's heart leaped, a mixture of relief, joy, and nervous excitement flooding through her. She took a deep breath, meeting his gaze with honesty. I feel it too, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. I wasn't sure at first, but the more time we've spent together, the more I realize how much I care. A small smile spread across Jason's face, one of quiet happiness and relief. He reached out tentatively, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, careful and gentle. Claire felt a shiver of warmth, her chest fluttering at the touch. It was a simple gesture, but it carried everything she had been longing for: attention, care, and a tender acknowledgement of their mutual feelings. They sat together for a while, their shoulders touching lightly, speaking in hushed tones, exploring the depths of their connection. There was no need for grand declarations, no dramatic gestures, just quiet honesty and the growing warmth of two hearts discovering a bond. Neither had expected, but both welcomed, as the sun began to set. They walked back toward the building, their hands brushing occasionally, the electricity between them palpable. Claire realized she had been waiting for this kind of connection for a long time, someone who could see her, understand her, and share moments of tenderness without judgment or expectation. Jason offered that in abundance, and she felt a deep sense of gratitude and relief. Back at the guest room, they paused, neither wanting to end the day too abruptly. Claire looked around, realizing how much this space had become a symbol of their growing closeness, as safe haven, a place where vulnerability and connection could flourish. Jason met her gaze, and for a moment, the world outside seemed to fade, leaving only the quiet intimacy between them. I don't want this to end, Claire whispered, almost to herself. It doesn't have to, Jason replied softly, a gentle smile playing on his lips. We can take it one step at a time. No pressure, no rush, just us. Claire nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. It wasn't just the promise of romance or attraction, it was the realization that she had found someone who valued her, cared for her, and allowed her to be herself without fear. The thought filled her with a quiet joy, a contentment that she hadn't felt in a long time. As evening turned to night, They sat together on the armchair, sharing a quiet drink, their conversation dipping into comfortable silences that spoke louder than words. The tension, the anticipation, and the subtle longing had transformed into something deeper, a shared understanding, a connection that was both tender and real. Claire realized that life had a way of surprising her in the most unexpected ways. A simple suggestion, a small act of kindness, had led to this sudden emotional closeness that was gentle yet powerful, thrilling yet grounding. She felt her heart open, her emotions raw but safe, and a smile curved her lips as she looked at Jason. Jason reached out again, brushing her hand with his fingers, a quiet acknowledgement of their mutual feelings. "I'm glad you're here," he said softly. "Really glad." Claire's eyes softened. "Me too," she whispered. More than I can say. They stayed together in the quiet warmth of the guest room, letting the evening stretch comfortably around them. There were no rushed decisions, no dramatic confessions, just the gentle understanding that they had found something worth exploring. A connection that promised tenderness, trust, and the quiet magic of being seen by someone who truly cared. As Claire finally lay down to rest, she felt a calm anticipation for the future. She didn't know exactly what lay ahead, but she knew this: the bond they had formed, built on honesty, care, and subtle attraction, was worth cherishing. The emotional intimacy, the shared vulnerability, and the soft sparks of romance had created a foundation that felt both thrilling and safe. Her last thought before drifting into sleep was filled with quiet hope. This is just the beginning, and it feels like it could last.